The datetime structure provides a number of properties for working with dates and times. When working with dates, there are properties to do things like determining parts of dates, such as the day, year, hour, whatever. The today property of the datetime structure that I use right here returns the current date as of midnight. And the now property here returns the current date and the current time. So what this code is doing is it's just merely informing the user of the current date and time. So I'll go ahead and run this code and select M for Use Datetime Properties, and here's the result of those two lines. So you can see the date and the time. Today, 1/18/2016, and now is 1/18/2016, 9:27 p.m. I'm working way too late tonight. Now, an interesting thing to notice about this is that even though the first statement used the to-do property in order to get the current date, a datetime structure always has a default time. And the default time is 12 o'clock midnight, basically the start of a day. So you have to be careful to write code so that you know whether that time is the default time or an actual time that represents some event. Now, on the other hand, includes the current time. So this is not the default time at all. Unless that statement happens to execute precisely at midnight, it's going to be some other time value than the default value. The datetime structure provides a number of properties to determine various components of a specific date or time. And these include date, which returns the date component of a date and time. Month returns the month portion. Day returns the day of the month portion of a date. And year returns the year portion of a date. And then you also have day of week, returns a string representing the day of the week. Day of year returns an integer representing the day of the year. Time of day returns the time of day, as you would expect. Hour returns the hour portion of a time. Minute, the minute portion. Second, the second portion. And millisecond, the millisecond portion. So you can easily access each of the individual components of a date or time. Here's some code that exercises those various properties. In all these cases, I'm going against datetime_now, which returns a datetime object. And keep in mind that it has both the date and the time. So it's going to return the date, the month, the day of the year, day of week, and all those properties. So if I go back to the results here, you can see that the date is that current date. Remember that this is the default time. It's certainly not midnight right now. The month is 1. It's currently January. Day is 18/2016. It's a Monday. The day of the year is 18. It's a very young year. Time of day is in 24-hour format. Hour, minute, and second. And the date, oops, that's the next section of code. I won't talk about that yet. All right, so you can see that these display all of the different components of that date and time. And then the next section of code here does something similar to what I've done earlier in the course. I'm going to new up a new variable called next century, and I'm using the datetime constructor to pass in the year, the month, and the day. So now this variable is going to contain a specific date. I don't have to use today's date. I don't have to use now's moment. I can work with dates in the future and in the past by using code like this. And then, once I have that date object, I can read the properties, because once again, this is a datetime object, next century, and so it has all of the same properties that I showed you before, except the date is January 1st, 2100. And there's that last set of results. I didn't specify a time, so I used the default time, and happens on a Friday. It's the first month, the first day in the year 2100. So the rich set of properties that are provided by the datetime class in the .NET Framework provide plenty of options for working with dates and times and their component parts. The class has a deep understanding of the foibles of dates and times, such as being able to identify whether a year is a leap year. Okay. Now, taking it a step further, the datetime object also has some methods that you can use. Amongst other things, it has methods to convert a datetime variable, the date that's contained within it, convert it to a string, and to customize the display of both the date and the time portions. For example, you can use the toLongDate string and the toLongDate string method, toLongTime method, to display the date or the time in the long format. You can also use the toShortDate string and the toShortTime string to display the date or time in the short format. And again, these are going to be culture specific. All right, so here's some code that does exactly that. And what it's doing is it's formatting the current date and time. So I'm once again using datetime today and converting it to a short date string, converting it to a long date string, and then taking now and looking at the short and the long time string. So just looking at the time portion of that. So if I run the application again, and this time I'm going to select N for using the datetime methods, there you can see that the short version of today's date is 1/18/2016. The long version is Monday, January 18th, 2016. Now time, the short version of the time is 9:37. The long version of the time is 9:37 and 24 seconds. Where the datetime structure really starts getting cool is that it provides various methods to determine a date in the future or the past. And these are essentially doing date math. With all these methods, you can specify either a positive number to go forward in time or a negative number to go backwards. So it makes available add dates. This method adds a specific number of days to a date, and keep in mind that it can be either positive or negative. Add months to add a number of months, add years, add hours, add minutes, add seconds, and add milliseconds. So it's pretty nice to be able to say, okay, I have this particular date string object, and I need to look forward 3 days, 4 hours, and 37 seconds. C# and the .NET Framework are able to handle that kind of date math in order to give you the result of what that future date and time is going to be. Here's some code that performs that kind of date math. So this first section is going to determine dates in the future. So I'm starting out by identifying what today's date is, and then I'm declaring an other datetime variable. All right, so the first thing I want to do is get the date that's 5 days in the future. So I use add days, pass in a parameter of 5, and then the other date time ends up being that value. Okay, so 5 days from now, and it displays that in the short date string format. And then it subtracts, well, it adds -5 months to the date, to today, and so I'm going back in time 5 months, and it displays that value as a short date string. And then I'm looking at today, and I'm going to add -10 years to go back 10 years in time. And so that's how easy it is to use date math. And they can do pretty much the same thing with times. I'm going to look at now, so I'm going to get the actual time now, look forward 5 hours, and what that date and time is. And so then I can use the toShortTime string in order to calculate that. Now it's important to understand that because it's pushing 10 o'clock p.m., 5 hours in the future is 1 day forward. The date portion of the other date time structure is going to be tomorrow's date. So it understands crossing the midnight boundary. It understands crossing time zones when you get into time zone math. It's actually got a lot of intelligence built into it. And then I'm going to add -10 minutes. I'm going to go back 10 minutes in time. And then I'm going to add 100 seconds. All right, so here's the result of this. Now, I actually ran this a little while ago. So it shows that it's January 18th, 2016. 5 days from now are the 23rd. 5 months ago was August 18th, 2015. And 10 years ago was January 18th, 2006. 5 hours from now, 2:37 a.m. 10 minutes ago was 9:27. and 100 seconds from now is 9:39:04.